be talking about is not particularly a way of thinking about leadership given in a given psychodynamic frame. I'm going to draw on a number of ideas, and to work with a model that we use. It's a kind of practical model, well, hopefully that will be interesting. Okay. Most of us talk about what is leadership, and I'm kind of interested in this question. Why is leadership? Because I think the general discourse around leadership development is much more focused on these kind of attributes of leaders. You know, are leaders visionary? Are they challenging? Are they vulnerable? All of the various kind of fads that sort of roll out. And I think we lose this question about, well, why is leadership? What is the point? When do we need leaders? What value do they actually give to our lives? Because I guess my own experience of leadership as someone who was led for most of my career is that some leaders added value and some didn't. And it was as much linked to where I was at a point in life, what was happening to me within the role I was in, as it was linked to the qualities of the leader themselves. And I'm going to start with a very simple thesis, very simple idea. That is going to run through the presentation, which you may not agree with, but hopefully it'll be provocative, which I think leaders help us internalize the experience of change. And that's kind of broadly it. So what does that mean? Let's explore this for a second. If we're going to understand that, we need to have a sense of what is the human experience of change. So what does change actually mean? And what I'm going to do throughout the presentation is I'm going to tend to talk about children, infants, babies. Some of you will have babies and children, so you'll be able to relate to this. But the reason I'm doing that is because our fundamental psychological processes don't change. So when we look at infant psychology, what we would term developmental psychology, what we're seeing is the human being in the raw. What changes is we get more adept at dealing with things, we get more sophisticated, we get better defended. But fundamentally, these processes will still apply. So let's just start with this from an infant developmental point of view. When we're first born, we are what we call integrated. Developmental psychologists would suggest that we don't distinguish between ourselves and our mothers, principally our mothers. Sorry to disappoint fathers here, but it is principally the mothers. We don't distinguish ourselves. Donald Winnicott, the great developmental psychologist, said that there's no such thing as a mother and baby. There is only a nursing couple. But what happens over time is that we, particularly around 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, the weaning process, we start to notice that we exist and we are separate. And this is when we experience the first sense of existence that is not integrated. We start to experience the idea of disintegration, the fact that actually we may fall apart, the fact that there is something beyond us. Another world exists with other people, with other things, with other ideas. And these two create an interesting set of polarities. On the one hand, we are integrated. We're what is known. We feel safe. We feel okay. It's very safe. It's also very suffocating. We can't develop. We can't grow. Disintegration, however, is not a desirable state to be either. It's a sense of terror. We can grow, we can change, but we are literally falling to pieces. And we often use that phrase. These two phrases here, Winnicott talked about the sense of falling forever, and Wilfred Bion talked about the sense of nameless dread, this sort of idea that there's just something going wrong, something that is not us, something that is beyond our control. And what happens then, of course, is we start to act out unconscious fears and fantasies. We start to behave in unpredictable, uncontrollable ways. So neither of these two experiences is particularly useful. The psychologist Michael Fordham described a very interesting process, which he suggested that learning, development, particularly with infants, but frankly extended right the way through our lives, is really a sequence of what he termed deintegration and reintegration. So little parts of us fall to pieces. We experience new people, new ideas, new possibilities. The world around us changes, and a little bit of us falls to pieces. We experience that frisson of fear, anxiety, and in time are able to then reintegrate those things so they become us and we become in a way larger. If we manage this process well, we can avoid this experience of disintegration. We can avoid the fear of sort of psychotic collapse, and we can start to say, okay, I can cope with change as a series of small steps. Fordham's words here, de-integration and reintegration describe a fluctuating state of learning in which a person opens themselves to new experiences and then withdraws in order to reintegrate and consolidate those experiences. So this is kind of the optimal learning position. We fall to pieces, we come back together again.